Hello and welcome to the AI Innovation Business Podcast with Daniel Halbert. Today we have a special featured guest, Mary Henderson. She's going to be telling us about her experience and expertise in the field of online educational resources and tool creation, how she helps her clients to use technology to get ahead in the modern world. We understand that there's a lot that goes into it, Mary. It's not just a matter of choosing the right software. The experience that Mary talks about is transformative and addresses a person's inner workings in addition to how they interact with the world around them. So without further ado, welcome, Mary.
Thank you, Daniel. Thanks for having me.
It's really great to have you on the show. Thank you for being here with us. I feel like I just kind of want to jump back into something we were discussing the other day, which is the hero's journey. I want to talk to you about that idea of a person meeting challenges throughout their life and what that should mean in terms of how they feel about themselves. So if I'm looking out into the great abyss of the future of my life and I don't know where it's going to end up, I could be a huge success, I may be a huge failure. There are a lot of environmental factors that are simply out of my hands. I know that plays a role in the way things are going to happen for me, yet I understand that without my absolute conviction and commitment to the process that I believe is going to bring me success, I will not achieve it. Mary, in that context, could you tell us about what kind of challenges your clients have met in the past and how you've helped them deal with them and how this fits into the context of the hero's journey?
People that I work with, Daniel, which is really interesting, is that every single one of them, outside of their intense professional experience, that comes with a deep level of wisdom regardless, right? But on the other side of the coin, they also have a very deep personal experience as well. And when you have a very deep personal experience, that means that you have, in some shape or form, been on the road less traveled. And let's call that the hero's journey, because the hero's journey is about the unfolding of my true self in some shape or form. And you could go deep, really deep, extraordinarily deep, and get to the other side and then just have a completely different lens of what your reality looks like and what reality means to you, of course. But the key for me, Daniel, when I'm working with my clients is merging those two sides of the coin together so that they can meet halfway. Because you see, what humans do in general is that we define our identity by our work, our job, our title, and we validate our self-worth based on that title. But you see, what I've found over the years with my clients, the ones that have had really intense personal experiences, really intense grief, for example, loss, and loss across all different spectrums, loss in terms of loss of children, loss of family, loss of money, lots of different losses. But when I started to see that my clients had really deep personal experiences, immediately I realized, whoa, we cannot leave that aspect out of that human being because that is what makes them who they are. And so my job was to merge those two together. I bring both of those aspects of an individual. How do I merge that together and create something incredibly magical? So that is how the hero's journey plays a role with my clients.
Maybe we could talk about different types of challenges. Do you think that the degree of suffering a person experiences is indicative of the outcomes for their success?
Well, that really depends, Daniel, because I think that when you have traumatic experiences, let's just take a traumatic experience in your life, you can look at it from two different angles. You can look at it from the angle of it's the best thing that happened to me because it shaped the person that I've become, or it could be completely unresolved. And sometimes people are stuck in the past. They don't actually realize it, but they're actually stuck in that story. So I think that the key is to understand that you are actually stuck, if you haven't moved on from that story, to actually recognize and own up that you're actually stuck in that loop. Because once you can actually see that you're stuck in the loop, then you have that self-awareness, and then you have choice. Then you can say, okay, I can see that I've been stuck back there. I can now do something with this. The ones that
Mhm.
have already dealt with that, absolutely. That's what I call their truest currency, because it is currency. You just think about it. If you have gone through a traumatic experience and you've worked through that, let's say grief as an example. And I have had a client who lost her 18-year-old daughter. It took her 3 years to just work through that grief. It wasn't because she was angry, even though that emotion obviously played a role. But you see, what happened is that she got through the other end. And because of her ability to unpack grief in such a deep way, she now can actually guide other people on that same journey through pure wisdom, because my clients have embodied wisdom. This is a big difference. It's not me saying to you, yeah, they've read 40 books, they've had 60 coaches, 42 mentors, they're so awakened. No. This is embodied wisdom. This is fully experienced in their body, and they can speak from that place. So the ones that go through that, they're extraordinary from a wisdom standpoint. The ones that haven't actually seen that they're still stuck in the loop, and they can see that they're stuck into a loop, essentially the hero journey actually begins for them. And sometimes I'm the instigator to that. It's to be able to say, go down this path, even though it is going to be painful, dark, confusing, chaotic. On the other side of all of that is actually where the magic is waiting for you. Your true self, the truest version of you, the authentic version of you is actually waiting on the other side of that. And you have to have a lot of courage to go down that path, Daniel. Not everyone can do that, because it is literally a confrontation and a meeting with the dark night of the soul. It's not an easy path, and it's definitely not for the faint of heart.
The soul, scaling with the soul. Is the soul somehow related to the way that we are supposed to approach our dark side? How can we use our soul to bring ourselves out of the loop and get ourselves positioned correctly for success in life?
The body is the most incredible instrument that we have been gifted as humanity. And I think that we don't understand that the body holds the key to allowing us to release what doesn't belong to us, and also to activate a much deeper part of us. You can call that the soul, the spirit, whatever word you want to call it. For me, it is the soul, because it's right here in my heart. And when you can go into that place of, of feeling discomfort, trauma, sadness, courage, happiness, elation, disappointment, whatever emotion that we go through on a day-to-day basis, when we can actually pause and stop and feel that intensity inside the body, not only are we confronting that energy that's stuck somewhere in our body, but that energy that's stuck in our body is actually preventing the soul from activating the truest version of itself. And because we're constantly stuck in this feeling of discomfort in some capacity. So when we can go to that place of discomfort, let's call it discomfort just for the sake of this interview, but when we can go to that place of discomfort, Daniel, and we actually feel it in the body, and we sit with it, we're not afraid of it, we're not making judgments, we're just feeling into that part of the body. It is amazing how it actually leaves the body. It's like this morning I went for a walk. I live near the water like you do. And I was just watching the waves, Daniel. And as I was watching the waves, I'm thinking, wow, isn't this interesting? The waves were just moving, moving, moving. And immediately I thought to myself, at no point did I actually witness one wave being stuck over there. It just kept moving. She said it doesn't stop. It just keeps moving. And we as humans, especially in our body, if we just allow for that movement to take place and we release it, we actually grow and outgrow that version of ourselves. So for me, the soul is about releasing that blockage in the body to allow the soul to expand and activate itself so that we can get closer and closer to the truest version of ourselves.
Wow. So we can define the soul for all the viewers as the whole that is greater than the sum of its parts. It
Yeah,
is the body is the vessel, and somehow within this complex organism exists the potential for something deeper, a sense of self, a sense of awareness with which we can break our habit.
yes.
Mary, could you give us some tips and tricks that we could just kind of quickly apply in our lives? Maybe even right here, those that are watching or listening in could take a moment and just follow along with you for some kind of quick grounding exercise.
One of my mentors, who was a philosopher, a professor in philosophy, who also was a rabbi as well. And I remember in our first conversation together, he said to me, I want you to buy a journal, a book, and I want you to go and get a pencil, a lead pencil, and I want you to write in that journal in first person every year of your life. And I'm like, well, how do I do that? And he said, because I want you to not logically write it. I want you to allow the soul to write it. And I didn't understand what he was saying to me, but this was a very important part of my own inner development, my own inner personal development, if you will. It took me, Daniel, about 3 weeks before something inside of me was activated. It was like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, and I woke up and I got my pencil, I opened up the journal, and I just started to write. I didn't even know what I was writing. It just all came out. It was the most profound experience I've ever had. And I remember he said to me, I want you to master freehand writing. This is what you must master. And he told me that this was something that the ancient Kabbalists knew, the power of freehand writing. And he said, in your life, I want you to master this. You just have to allow the pencil to write for you, not the brain, just your pencil. So till this day, and I had that experience with my mentor in 2012. It's now 2025. And I still, till this day, journal every single day like that in my journal with the grey lead pencil. And I just write out. I don't even know most of the times what I'm writing. So this is one modality that is a very ancient modality, may I just add, that I learned through my mentor. And the other thing is breathing. I think that we don't understand the power of breathing, and I certainly didn't either. But I've taught myself how to go into a very deep state of breathing. Even 5 minutes, Daniel, can completely reset our nervous system. So when we're stressed or anxious, instead of trying harder to hustle or try to fix the problem, work more hours, no, what we need to do is stop completely, just go into standstill. And what I do is I go into breathing, and sometimes I will breathe for an hour, maybe two, sometimes I've done it for, just to get my nervous system back into its state of balance. Because if we're not in that state of balance, you meet people like this all the time. They're very reactive. They're not grounded. They're doing. That is not normal for humans to behave like that. We've been conditioned to do that, but human beings are not meant to act like that. So they're the two things that I think that the listeners could take on board and implement themselves.
It's incredible. I remember I read a book. I learned with an old rabbi. He was like a community rabbi for 40 years, also a prison chaplain in like Philadelphia for like 15, 16 years. And him and I found ourselves talking about different forms of automatic manifestations of different kind of, let's say, the soul. And we studied it. He actually recommended a book by a professor named, last name is Werblowski.
Must have made it.
I'll send it to you because it's on the mysticism of Rabbi Joseph Caro, and he lived at the same time period as the Arizal, who is like the one famous for making Kabbalah so prolific. You know, drawing upon ancient Jewish sources and putting it together in ways that were very abstract and interesting. What was interesting in that time period, which was around, it was right after the Spanish Inquisition. So we were talking about even Rabbi Caro, actually, he fled Spain because of the Inquisition and made his way over to Safed in northern Israel, which is known to be like a spiritual
Wow.
headquarters in the country. And so they all had different kinds of automatic ability like this. For example, Warblowski explores Caro's automatic speech and how he would use the automatic speech and he would write what he would speak. So it's actually kind of like it's what you're saying, but he didn't use the hand or directly through the writing. And so the other thing that was going on, there was another great Kabbalist at the time that was famous for his automatic writing. And so there were
Yes.
these differences essentially in the kind of content that was being created in those times. And then you had somebody like the Arizal who he wasn't known necessarily for his automatic writing or speech, but it was like he was known for speaking with Elijah the prophet, you know? So
Yeah.
that is another
Wow.
kind of experience that I would say is not totally out of the same category, but there are some nuances to explore in terms of awakening consciousness and how that can change us and make us better people. So I wanted to share that with
Really.
you as well. I'm
Thank
also a
you.
big journalist. I like journaling. I've been journaling since I was 12. And I remember when I was a kid, when life was a little more challenging, let's say when I was a teenager, I would turn the lights off in my room, put on some music, and I would just like position my hand with a pen on the paper where I could start. At first, it would just go off the page because I didn't understand like the size of the paper, but eventually I got kind of good at it. So I have like a bunch of these entries of like these
Wow.
notes that are just like I tried to black out my own perception when I was doing it.
That's awesome, Daniel. That's fantastic.
Yeah. So anyways, I just feel like you're speaking to me in a very true way. Maybe we can speak a little bit more about how a person can take their energy. There's this energy within that they unlock through the different practices you just mentioned, but through self-exploration and growth. How can a person transfer the growth within into some external measurements of success?
I think that the first thing is that, and I talk about this a lot with the people I work with, is self-awareness, and because so many of us have been programmed to be on autopilot, rinse and repeat. We're on the hamster wheel. It's constantly go, 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 do, do, do. And I think that's very, very dangerous. So I always talk about this notion around loops and lies. And by that, I mean that if we need to be self-aware of the things in our reality, our day-to-day life that trigger us, that don't make us feel good, that create some type of reaction in us, whether it's verbal, whether it's physical, whether it's emotional, whether it's spiritual, that it creates some type of response. Typically, it's not a good response. And so self-awareness for me has been huge, absolutely huge. It's right at the top of my list because if you don't have self-awareness, you'll never be aware or you'll never be on that hyper-aware kind of, place in your life where you're constantly, wanting to become the better version of yourself. So for me, self-awareness is everything. If something bothers me or someone triggers me, that is a sign that says to me, you need to look at this in yourself. Something in you needs resolving. So I use people as my mirror. It's been the greatest thing I've ever done. And a lot of people get triggered by other people. It's his fault, her fault. He said, she said. I don't do that. When something's not going right for me, somebody has said something, somebody has done something. Do you know how much of a gift that is? That person has shown me that something inside of me needs urgent attention. It could be self-worth. It could be self-care. It could be an emotion that I'm not willing to look at, but it requires my attention. So instead of getting angry with people or making judgment calls on people, blaming other people, we need to thank those people, thank those opportunities, thank those situations, so we can actually stop and say, what's going on in me? What do I need to look at? What is my body trying to tell me? If you have drawn into your reality a situation that you don't like, and you keep attracting similar situations like that over and over again, the body is it actually attracting back to you the thing that it wants you to resolve. But what do humans do? They start making judgment calls, pointing the finger. It's his fault, her fault. He said, she said. Instead, we need to say, no, I need to look at this. Something inside of me needs to be resolved. I thank that person for showing me, for bringing this to my attention, bringing the self-awareness, because I'm stuck in either a loop or a lie, and I need to resolve that. So I think that is a really, really, really important lesson, the self-awareness, because without that, you're on the hamster wheel.
But Mary, I don't know where it's going to take me. I'm scared. I don't know what's gonna be with me if I follow your lead. I know what you're saying makes sense. I know I read it in the books. I did my own research, and I know it all makes sense. Actually, I knew everything you said. I already knew this like a long time ago. But you know, I think that I didn't want to do it because I think it wasn't the best thing for me. But then again, maybe I'm just playing devil's advocate. What would you say to somebody if they were speaking to you like that?
Well, that's the thing, Daniel. You can't. You're just like everything you just said to me. Who am I to tell somebody to go down that path? That's the path I take. But all the greatest leaders and people that I know have taken that path. All the greatest spiritual teachers have taken that path. So, which is the hero's journey. This is the hero's journey. The hero's journey is there's layers you need to go through. Do people go through all of those layers? No, because it's heavy. It's really heavy. We have to think of it like this. Let's just say you're 40 years old and you have an awakening. Something happens in your life and you're like, oh my God, like you're confronted by something and you're forced to look in yourself. Not only you have to look at yourself now, but now you have to unlearn what you've learned. That takes a lot of courage. So I can't tell people you have to go down this path. That individual needs to make the decision to walk down that path. This is a very individual thing. This is not someone telling you, Daniel, you have to do this if you want to become successful. That doesn't work like that.
Well, I know. I think that not everybody's cut out for that kind of leadership. Maybe I'm better off just trying to follow your instructions and just try to be you instead of being myself. Because, Mary, I mean, look how many people you're inspiring. Look how many lives you've changed. I mean, you're educating people online and offline and on mass. Like maybe I'm better off trying to just be you instead of following my own path. I haven't been that successful in my own way, I would argue. So what's better for me?
Well, that would be a disaster. Like trying to follow me would be a disaster. Now, why? Because I have my own divine purpose and mission. You have your own divine purpose and mission. I think that we have to stop looking at other people and saying, oh, I want to be like that. Or, if she can do it, I can do it. If he can do it, I can do it. We can all do it. Everything that we need is already inside of us, but we have to be willing to unlearn all of the loops and the lies in order to arrive at a place where we can see the world through a completely different lens. And that's the key, Daniel. You have to actually see the world through a different lens. I think what a lot of people try and do, and believe me, I say this because I was one of those people, is we want our life to be different, but we're not willing to give up parts of that life, that past life, to make way for something new. And something new cannot operate in an old, antiquated, toxic environment. It just cannot. It cannot survive. So even wanting to be like somebody else is also toxic. When people come to me, it's not about them being me. I just have a framework and a pathway. I'm like the bridge where I say, you have to use all of your inventory to do this work, not my inventory. It requires all of your experience, all of your trials and tribulations. Every aspect of you has to be in that toolbox in order for you to create the outcome that you want. I'm just the bridge. I'm creating frameworks and systems that you can implement, but it's got nothing to do with me. It's just a system. Think of it like a wire. You're implementing the wire, the foundation of your building. That's it. So, so wanting to be like somebody else is not the right pathway.
Let me ask you a question on the back of that one. When you have clients that are they're in loops, they're caught in these habits, they're unhealthy patterns. They're caught up in this stuff because not just their own fault, but it's environmental as well. People
Yeah.
living inside toxic environments. How can you help a client who is surrounded by others and in toxic environment? People that are holding that wouldn't be happy. They know it and others know it. Maybe sometimes it's even family members or friends that would simply be unallowing of any additional personality or transformation. So your client may feel like that it's not just a risk of losing their sense of self. They might actually lose real people, like their social life may take a hit.
The thing with my clients, Daniel, and this is where I'm very clear on the people I want to work with, they've already invested heavily in their personal development. So when they come to me, they're not looking for a savior. They're looking to actually, create their own internal and external system, but they've already done the inner work. They're not in those type of environments where it's limiting them. They're not limited by any means at all. So my messaging is very clear. So I'm very clear on the type of people that I work with. I don't work with people who are just starting out, they're kind of, hustling their way through and trying to filter things through. My clients are predominantly mature. They've already been in business. They've invested heavily in their personal development. When they come to me and I can see if they've got a block, I can take them through my framework and actually pinpoint exactly where the loop and the lie is that they're stuck in. And they have the tools to be able to resolve that. I can go through that pretty quickly with them. So the thing is that my clients are not new to all of this. They're not in environments that don't allow them to grow. And I know that there are people maybe listening to this and they're like, oh my God, I wish that was me, but I'm not in that situation. Well, this is where we have to also, I use the word courage a lot, but it does take courage to be able to say, no, I'm going on this path. I need to work in myself, not on myself, in myself, and start to understand, who am I? What role does my body play? What role does my nervous system play? What role does my brain play? What is my soul? What is my spirit? What do all of these things mean? So instead of reading self-help books, we actually need to dive deeper. We need to really understand all these elements about who we are, the world that we live in. What is this stage that we're living in? And all these actors, there's 8 billion actors in this world, they mean. We have to look beyond what we see on the TV, and if people just turn their TV off and spend more time in silence, we would have an amazing world, amazing world.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow. Yeah. So another piece that I'm understanding here, the hero's journey, it begins with you. It begins when you're on your
Yeah,
own. It begins when you're at your lowest low, oftentimes, and there's nobody around. You don't get to your lowest low without a fair amount of negligence, and self-awareness is the
it
and
is.
so You
It
can
is.
start by symptomatic treatment. You can look at your behavior and say, I have been so unaware of my actions and the things that I've been saying that it is actually going to be pretty easy to improve my conduct. And you'll see results quickly. Like, I
Right
guess,
away.
in other areas of life, just like learning, you master something and you plateau. It's
Yes.
not a bad thing, actually. It's an indicator of some level of mastery.
Yeah.
So for the viewers that are looking and they're saying, I want to work with Mary. I want to take myself to the next level. I want to break through my glass ceiling. You might not be ready. You might need to do a little bit of your own work. You might need to do a little bit of your own self-exploration to sort yourself out where you actually would benefit from the help of another. First, take care of yourself. Then you can go and find the master that'll help you transform into something even greater. You'll have something to look forward to. Mary, how does being authentic with oneself tie into the way that one should engage and relate to modern day technology like AI? How do people that want to be self-aware, that want to grow and improve themselves without compromise, how can they interact with modern day technology in order to enhance this even further, and also things they could avoid?
I think that AI, it's very interesting because I don't see AI as something that's just been discovered in the last 2 years. I think that AI has always been here because what is AI? It's outside of it, well, there's lots of different layers to AI. There's obviously the technology, there's the infrastructure, the data center, but the information that AI organizes is based on the collective. So we are already feeding the AI algorithm just through our own consciousness. The things that we know, the things that we talk about, the things that we've experienced, we're already feeding the machine. So I think that we need to look at it as the way that I look at AI, and I think I mentioned this to you when we were talking yesterday, I see AI as the fake God, right? It wants to play God, but it's the fake God. It can never be the real God because it's fake. It's a replica, if you will. But it still actually helps us, outside of organizing our information, it actually does help us and provides us with some breadth and depth of wisdom, which is awesome. And that can be very beneficial to us in business, in education, in medicine, across all industries. So for me, when I co-create with AI. I don't see AI as something over there and I'm over here. I see AI as can we collaborate and create something incredible together. So I co-create with it. I think I mentioned this to you maybe even yesterday too. I've been working on a framework for my clients so that we can go a lot deeper when we're creating our content. Now, I could put in a prompt into AI and I can say, write me content for LinkedIn for the next 20 days. This is my target audience. This is my specialization. These are the things I want to talk about. Give me 20 posts. And it will give me 20 posts, but it's going to be pretty average. When I write my content framework, the one that I just finished took me 182 hours to write. I'm actually writing an algorithm for the algorithm, if that makes sense. I don't want AI to go on a tangent. I want to bring it into my ecosystem and I want to say, I want you to work in my ecosystem. And I'm going to give you all the smarts, but this is how I want you to help me. This is the role I want you to play in the work that we need to create together. So for me, it's a co-creation partnership. I'm not afraid of it. I've fully embraced it. I'm empowered by it, but I empower it as well. And so I think that those people who are exploring AI, they're uncertain about AI, we have to look at it through a completely different lens because it will evolve and it will become more human-like than ever before. They're already doing that. The CTO of OpenAI, she just left OpenAI. She's just started her own company. And what they're doing is creating another AI platform. And it's all about humanizing the whole AI relationship with real humans. So we're at a very interesting precipice with technology, but it's going to get super scary and exciting at the same time. And I think it just depends how you see it.
So, could you explain to the audience how maintaining a human-centric framework with interactions with AI can guarantee a positive outcome for our future?
Well, this is where, wisdom plays a significant role, because for those people who have got wisdom, experience, multitude of experience, you are at the forefront of this technology. You can create solutions to complex problems just based on your wisdom. And based on that, you can create frameworks specific to your audience, the problem that you're trying to solve, and start to co-create with AI. The ones that are getting information from a textbook, I can't help those people because I don't work with those people. But my audience, they're super smart in their area of specialization. How do I take that aspect of them and how do we create something that can help their clients collapse timelines? That's the goal here. It's, yes, productivity is one thing, but could you imagine being able to collapse timelines? Because of my frameworks, because of I've got 23 years of experience, I know how to solve so many complex problems. My coaching, when I used to coach people only 2 years ago, and we were creating their businesses and sales strategies and content strategies, their branding, this was a 6 to 12 month process. Then I was able to shorten that to 6 months, 4 months, 3 months. I can build somebody's business from start to end in 4 weeks. We can create, sell, and launch in 4 weeks now. So when you have that level of wisdom, you can collapse timelines. I mean, this is for me the most exciting thing about AI.
That's amazing. So the frame of I am using AI to assist me in my purpose-driven path. Well, I'm going on my path is a way to leverage it for it's a combined outcome. In other words, I'm changing a little bit. I'm becoming someone that is receptive to the way that AI operates and the way that it communicates through the ways that I can communicate with it. If I communicate and I use this technology the same way that I would, let's say, in my daily life, just kind of half present at most in my phone, partially having a conversation or two over a message and a phone call and doing research, then I'll probably achieve similarly poor outcomes, even though I'm using a tool that's so powerful that has all the wisdom.
Yeah.
So it makes me realize that by maintaining that human frame of knowing what I am doing and having the mindfulness and the purposefulness to achieve it,
Yes,
it makes AI a valuable resource for me in terms of collapsing my timelines.
totally.
But if I don't have any timelines to collapse, if I don't have a path, if I don't have a journey ahead of me, then there's simply nothing that I am creating efficiency with and
Correct.
get me nowhere.
Correct. That's exactly right. So your intentionality is really important when we're using these type of technologies. Rather than being a passive user, for me, it's very intentional. Like everything I do on there is so intentional. I have a very specific output that I'm looking for, and I won't stop until it gives me that final output. So, you're absolutely right. Mindfulness is another thing. You have to be very mindful, because if you've got a destination, then and you've got a gap between where you are to where you want to go, then AI can really, really help in a major way. But you need to understand what that gap is.
It's funny, I remember my dad used to always tell us growing up, you got to turn off the lights when you leave the room. And we don't think about it this way, but you are using energy every time that you are working with your AI LLMs. And you should be mindful of the fact that energy is not an unlimited resource in this world, and it has an environmental impact. So the beginning of intentionality generally starts with the recognition that we don't have unlimited resources and that we have to start planning.
Mhm.
And part of your planning will be what are my tools that I can use to change myself? What is the timeline that it will afford me for that process to work? And then also understanding that with the intentionality and the understanding of this new AI platform, you're going to be able to take yourself from today on the podcast, not even being ready for Mary, to I am now actively working with an assistant. My first intentional move is going to be to reconcile my internal self, my internal landscape, to get to a point where I am somebody that I feel should go ahead and interact with the best technology available on the market, because when I take myself and I collaborate as a co-creator with AI, I become a greater version of myself. I'm
Yeah.
not relying on it. I'm using it, and it's like another tool in my toolbox. But if you're not using that tool, if you're not taking advantage of it, then you are kind of like a stone man in the modern day, it
I think
seems.
right. I actually have to agree with you. I agree with that actually 100%. And I see that a lot. You know, a lot of people make commentary about AI. Oh, it's never going to replace humans. It's never going to do this. I understand that. And yes, correct. It's not. You see, this is the thing though. I think that where there will be a shift though, especially in the corporate landscape, is that wisdom will become the highest currency, and it will, and I'm talking about a human being that will be required to go into a boardroom to actually solve complex problems. But then that human can take that complex problem, then use AI to co-create with it and try and come up with scenarios, you know, models that they can, that can be explored, unpacked, you know, and considered, you know, in a real life meeting situation. So, and I think that this is where once upon a time, Daniel, I used to organize all of my clients' information manually. Like I used to actually do it, like pull it all together. You know, I mean, I have a software background, so naturally I think like an algorithm, but that used to take hours, and it was never accurate. Now I can do it with AI. It is accurate. So it's just so incredible when you use it through a different lens.
Do you think that a hero's journey part two is where you've now become so great? You've now had a lot of great coaching, not just from yourself, let's say some other great ones out there. And now as a whole, you're looking to continue to grow and you don't want to plateau.
No,
Maybe that person doesn't exactly exist, but if they do, what advice do you have for them?
I think that if we stop, this is my view. If I stop growing, then I'm dead. You know, like I don't want to stop growing. I want to, I want to explore my absolute greatest potential. And every day is an exploration for me. Like quite literally, every day I feel like I outgrew the version that you spoke to yesterday. Honestly, I feel like this every single day. And the reason I embraced it is because I never know, Daniel, what is going to wait for me on that day, what I'm going to experience, what I'm going to unfold. And some days I have the greatest epiphanies, and that is because I'm very open to growth. Like I'm really open to it. And I embrace it and I welcome it. And so I feel that if we stop growing as a society, we need to be growing because otherwise AI will take over. That's the danger of AI, is that when you stop growing as a human and AI actually does all the thinking for you, that's when we have a problem. So I feel that the more we stay human, the more we center ourselves, the more that we go inside, we feel this beautiful body, the more we outgrow the version that we were yesterday. It's like the snake that continues to shed its skin.
Good. Um, before we wrap up, I want to ask you one final question, just to tie it all together. How can we take all of the different topics we discussed today and understand it from the frame of you building online educational resources? How do you take all of your theory and methodology and experience and transfer that over into these learning tools that you're offering?
Yeah, I mean this is 23 years of my experience, being able to convert all of my knowledge and my wisdom into very smart frameworks that really help my clients. I mean, they use my frameworks to get the outcomes that they're looking for, because I don't want my clients to waste time trying to figure things out. I've already figured out how to do it. They just need to populate the information that's required, and they can still use AI. Like all of my frameworks are now very smart data prompts. But the thing is that it all comes down, to answer your question, for me, it's 23 years of intense embodied experience that I've had to learn, fail so many times, learned from
Mm.
my failures, pick myself up, look at implementing new ideas, new ways, new thought patterns. And then through that process, you start to build very intelligent frameworks so that my clients can put all of the information into into the different frameworks to get the output. Their programs, their signature programs, their self-study programs, their sales strategies, their content strategies. All of this is now we now do with AI, but that has taken me 23 years to develop.
Well, then that's another key is human development is not something that you can't really rush your own progress. Even if you speed up all the other subroutines that you're doing in order to optimize your day-to-day growth, at the end of the day, growth being this perpetual thing, this
Yes,
perpetual
yes,
emergence of oneself every single moment, continuously refreshing and renewing, that you could never actually grow faster than the maximum growth capacity that you should be already taking advantage of. And every day, as new opportunities arise, you should continue to benefit from those and to take advantage of those as well. And I think that the greatest resource is not the one that you can log into and work with. It's like you said, it's the person in the boardroom who sits there at the head of the table,
uh-huh,
understands the situation,
uh-huh,
is a master of all of the resources that are required for executing on the task at the highest level. And that person is working as a co-creator with AI, but maintains the human frame, and the AI falls into that frame. They have intentional movements, they ask intentional prompts, they create intentional ways of thinking and movements in their communities, and we can all go ahead and try to benefit from what Mary's been teaching us here. Mary, I want to thank you so much for your time, and I would like to ask you if you don't mind sharing any promotional items, subjects that you'd like to mention here at the end of our podcast while we're wrapping up. Great to share that with the viewers.
Yes, please go to my website, maryhendersoncoaching.com. You can book a 15-minute Zoom call with me. I have many, many free resources on my website. So go ahead and download all of those. And also make sure you connect with me on LinkedIn, Mary Henderson Coaching, and Instagram. And let me know that you found me on Daniel's podcast.
Like and subscribe and comment so we can see that you're engaged with our material. And feel free to reach out to me as well if you want me to put you in touch with Mary. And I'm also looking forward to following up in future sessions and making use of this recorded materials to extend the abilities for our viewers to learn on the platforms that we've been developing, such as Torah Chatbots, educationchatbots.com. So, Mary, have yourself a wonderful, I believe it would be your evening at this point in
Yes.
Australia.
Thank you so much, Daniel.
Take care.